Good morning. It's about 11:30 a.m. 11:30 a.m. on Thursday, the 21st of May, 2026, and it's overcast, warmer, a lot warmer, I have to say, than it was, but still not that very warm. But grass is growing now. Okay, it's that time of year when my heifers and cows get into a happy mood, and I don't keep a bull, so there has to be AI, and so I am busy. I'm kept busy. The way we say it here is I do be busy, but apparently that's not proper grammar. If you want to comment on that, I do be busy, but I am busy, but I'm not busy now. You see, despite I was busy a few minutes ago, so do be suits it better. The other thing is calving. Some calving, all went well. All went well, and but I was lifting a calf out of one place into another across an obstacle, and I hurt my back. I hurt the back, down the lower back here, and it's coming on. I know it's not too bad. It wasn't too bad, and a lot of them around here are using horse ointment, horse emrication. There's some place doing it. I didn't try it yet. I might get a wee bit of a deep heat pad or some of those pads you put on it on the lower back. But it's not too bad. I know it's coming on, but it's a bit of a disablement all the same. And of course, only for these fellas here, I don't know how it'd be. The best invention ever came on, the paracetamol. I'll be watching too when I take paracetamol if I have any allergies. Now, sometimes I have allergies, particularly with tomatoes and sometimes with potatoes and a few other things. And if I don't have them when I'm taking them, then that would be one way of dealing with it. I'd rather use Aspro. I think aspirin is better, more healthy than paracetamol generally. But anyway, we'll keep you in mind. Always watch when you're on a particular medication. Does it have other side effects? That's how some of the cures was invented. There's a Healy-Proly-Cocky is a bug in the stomach, and I had it, and it was discovered by an Australian doctor who kept a record of his patients when he gave them antibiotic for other things like colds and whatever else it's for, flus or whatever. You see, and he remarked that when he asked them if they were getting better, they came back, they said they were. And did you have any stomach trouble? No. And he began to notice that this bug was actually helping to cure it's bacterium, isn't it, in the stomach, that funny name thing, Helicobacter pylori. And eventually the cure of it was a severe dose, a week's course of antibiotic. You have to get it prescribed. Now that's that. I noticed that Lina Sands, I think that's to do with Bobby Sands, criticised me on my migration, but I made a video in response and I got no response. When nobody will challenge you, there must be something. How come nobody will challenge me to a debate? Because they know I'm right. Now, folks, by the way, the elections in Dublin and Galway are tomorrow. This is Thursday, the 21st of May, and they're tomorrow in Galway and Dublin. And so it's Friday, and I asked you again, I can only appeal again, for the sake of our country, the man to vote for is Malachy Steenson in Dublin, and that Orlan Nugent, and there's a chap called Noel Thomas in Galway. Nugent apparently is the most favoured. I'm going to my contacts that are well aware of this. I don't follow it that much now, but that's what you have to do if you're a proper Irish person. Now, one of the things I spotted, I go back through some of my videos when I get it easy, when I get a cup of coffee, and I noticed there that when I made the Patrick's Day a short video about Kingscourt on St. Patrick's Day and how it pans out, as it were, and you'll see it's got over 8,000 views. It's just a short there. I made another one the other day there with a cat on my back. So, anyway, 8,000 views, and someone posted, I think I saw you, that I was at the parade, and I think I saw you, a man with a scarf. Well, the way you'll know if it was me, I have, although you could see me wearing rough clothes and rough trousers, I don't wear pull-ups for cattle. Could be an odd calf do the thing on me leg, and I just brush it off and get on with it. But I always have clean vest and clean underpants. And if it's winter, if I have to wear long johns in cold weather, I'll have clean long johns. I try and keep those washed. Keep them washed. Give them a run on the washing machine, spin, hang them out to good rinse, or sometimes maybe include them with the home laundry or whatever. So that's how you'll know. If you see me out and you wonder is it me, you'll know by my vest and my underwear, my underpants or my long johns. They're always very clean. That's one thing I'm very particular. I be clean on the inside. I feel good when I'm that way. And then the outside doesn't matter. When I was in the job in the Irish Gardaí, we used to dress perfectly, but when you're farming, it's rougher. When you're handling calves and cows and trying to get them in and things like that, it roughens you a bit. I never had odd socks on me till I retired onto the farm. Now I don't know what. Well, I have actually matching socks today, but very often it's whatever you can get. One gets wet or the other doesn't. So that's the thing. Now, anyway, I saw a flock of ducks today, mallard ducks, 6 of them I counted. That must be a hatching that was here in the river. And if anyone has land or that, if there's a river, I must throw a wee bit of calf nuts, barley meal, any meal in where you can see them, especially along a road. And it's nice to see them there. I see them hatching here. They don't stay around here. They go away to the big lakes. Anyway, folks, that's enough of that. We now come to deep state and global elite. And you know the way it's said, and there's something to it. There is a global elite. There is a deep state. But the extent of it is very hard to quantify. And if you say, oh, sure, the whole thing's corrupt, they're all bought off, that's not adequate. That's not adequate for me as a person who likes mathematics and percentages and all that. And we look at it, MI5, MI6, you'd nearly think they were running my place, MI6. We just look at the British Secret Service. Way back in about 1973, there was Keith and Kenneth Littlejohn, 2 criminals that were in Borstal in England, and somehow Lady Onslow referred them to Lord Carrington. And they came to Ireland supposedly as spies, and they joined what was then the sticky or official IRA, of which the provisional IRA split from. The official IRA were a bit more mannerly, as it were. And they say that they ejected them or they sacked them out of the official IRA because they were doing robberies. They robbed a bank, but somewhere in Uri, I think. But they robbed one in Grafton Street in Dublin. Held the bank manager hostage and brought him in and made him hand over €67,000. And they headed back to England, and the Irish state looked for their extradition, and they were extradited. And they were put into Mountjoy jail. And they say that they actually used toothpaste to escape. But you don't rack your brains to think that one. But apparently they were allowed. They got in hacksaw, and they cut the bars in the cell. My word, if that's how lax the system was, that they couldn't look at the bloody bar, it wouldn't happen me in a fit. But they were sawing away and using toothpaste to cover it. The bars of the jail were painted white. That's what they say. I remember, well, just about, you'd hear them on the radio, Keith and Kenneth Littlejohn. They escaped anyway, and they made their way to the north, and the whole lot's a bit comical. But they were a type of a spy for the British. They were double agents type of thing. Now, an untrue story was told about up in North County Louth, up there around Flagstaff on the border with South Armagh, that during the Second World War, Hitler had spies everywhere, and he had a few spies on the border in Ireland. And but one of them never made the phone calls back. He was sending them so much money every week, or every month, we'll say, money in an envelope, but he never heard anyone. So he sent over one of his marshals or people to see what they could find out. And the code word for the spies was, the rain in Spain falls mainly in the plain. That was the code word. So anyway, a man arrived from Germany, and he went to look, and the spy's name was Paddy. So he went around anyway, and he said to the postman, do you know any Paddy? And I know several paddies, so he wasn't able to set him up right. And then he went out somewhere else, and he couldn't make any progress. So he was on his bicycle apparently out from Dundalk, and he come across a fella cutting a hedge with the clippers. And he says to him, "Do you know any paddy living round here?" "I do," he says. "And where is he?" Well, he says, "There's several." He says, "Paddy the plasterer lives just round the corner on the right. See that house up on the hill there? That's Paddy the blacksmith. And down that road there, if you go down there and to the crossroads, you go straight through, and the next house on the left, that's Paddy the farmer." And and then he says, "There's another one down to the left there. That's Paddy the shoemaker." So your man decided, would he be talking to this? He says, "In fact, I'm Paddy myself. I'm Paddy the hedge clipper." And your man decided, the German, that he'd try it on, and he says, "The rain in Spain falls mainly in the plain." "Ah," says he, "you're looking for Paddy the spy. He lives, go down to the cross," he says, "and it's the fourth house on the right." That was the story that was told. Anyway, the other British spy thing was that there was Robert Neerac, and he was sent over, and he was a spy, there's no doubt, sent him over as a spy, and he was mixing with the crowd in Crossmaglen and South Armagh. Now, whatever you might say about them, and I would be some of the best people from there, but there's some rogues as well. Some, as they say, from Carrickmacross to Crossmaglen, there are more rogues than honest men. That's only the old saying was. But anyway, he landed into the middle of them, and he was drinking with them. The usual old Englishman stuck among the paddies, talking in his swanky accent. And should they spot him straight away? And they let him go ahead, they let him play along. And he'd be singing songs, he'd be learning the words of Irish songs. And I mean, the thing is, they took him and they killed him, and his body was never found. But the people that did it, funny enough, were caught. It just shows you how effective the Gardaí were. They caught them, and they were convicted without a body. He was never found. But just consider that the British government, or the British Secret Service, that's the best that they could offer. That they actually thought, and he was a fine fella, like he had parents and all, Captain Robert Neerac, and he was high ranking, that he could go over there and bullshit his way around with the IRA and the locals round there. So I think there is a kind of an IRA and a British Secret Service thing, but they're having too much cop on. They're not very smart. Now, I was a guard one to myself up on the border. I was in Dublin too, another place, but I was on the border. And the Garda regulations said that you couldn't contact an RIC man, or UC man, Royal Ulster Constabulary, a Northern policeman, directly. You had to go through the superintendent. That was to stop too much. It wasn't that they were trying to stop general chat, but the superintendent could authorise you to talk to them, and vice versa, for maybe a stolen tractor. And there would be a good bit of that. They might ring and say, "I wonder, would you check? There's a tractor missing here." And this fella that was stolen off, he had a guy employed here for a while, and he suspects that he didn't pay him enough. And could you check? And we would check that for them, and they'd check it for us. It wasn't a big problem. But there was a telephone in every border station, like O'Mead in North Louth, Hackball's Cross. Maybe 2 or 3, going directly across to the police in the north. And it was strictly speaking illegal under Garda regulations to talk to them. Even though they'd wind up, you'd hear the ring, hello, station here. There's a car gone across there. We have it, it's belonged to so-and-so. It's just maybe it might be, they wouldn't be stuck for telling us about no tax or insurance, but they're dicey looking people. Or they might ring us up and say, we had a crime here last night, there was a house broken into and a turnip barrel stolen or something, or some old person, keep a tight lookout. And we'd watch tight. When we'd hear there was a crime across the way, and most of it would be non-political, we would go out, we'd try and see what we could find. And they'd do the same. And in some very serious crimes, like for theft, I had to work with them. And I actually went down to the north and got a warrant in the north and searched for stolen livestock. So the thing about it is we had to have a certain amount of cooperation, and there still is. That's the way people, IRA lads would be saying, oh, you're only taking the British shilling. But if one or two guards let them in too much, sometimes they'd ring and say, we'd like to come down. And some of the sergeants wouldn't want them down because of the security risk. But also there was the regulation was there against too much communication. But then there would be a superintendents come down from the north and vice versa. There was a chief superintendent one time, and he was in Loudmead, and he was invited to an annual dinner. It was Christmas dinner or something down around Newry, and he went with the wife. And the first thing he rang before he came, he says his wife loves some type of biscuits that could only be got in the north. I wonder, could you get me a couple of tins of these biscuits? I don't know what they were. And the police had to go and get the owner of the shop to come in and get them 2 tins of the biscuits for him and give them to him. And then there was a bit of a talk after it, and hey, thank you very much, it's good for the corporate. Naturally enough, the northern services were very anxious to have the Gardaí on site. I myself was circumspect. I was cute enough to be professional. That was the big thing. Go with the law and be professional and report everything up so that you're covered. Now, some people watching me say, oh, you're a right old Brit. No, our job was to keep the peace. That was our job. Protection of life and property. And sometimes there'd be command wires going across the fields, and we'd be out searching them and all that sort of stuff. So anyway, I'll do another video on one incident about the closing of a border road, but it's not appropriate here. So that was the thing. Maybe there was a bit of that. Then there was sometimes guards allowed themselves to be maybe registered in England as someone that was useful to them. I would never let that happen. Well, you couldn't stop it. They could put you down, you see. They could put down your name and say he's useful. But once you were cute enough how to work it, and go with the law and go with the fact that you were there to protect life and property, there wouldn't be, in one station, there'd only be a sergeant and 2 guards, and instead that there was 25 guards and a patrol car. So, and detectives in and everything else. So it wasn't a normal situation. And again, your job was to keep the peace. And in one station I was in North Monaghan, the IRA opened fire on the patrol car and shot a man here in the shoulder and tried to kill another man. He ran away. He had to run. They were going to kill him. They were deadly dangerous. And so that was the thing. And we were out on the border with no guns at all. The uniform guards had no guns. Anyway, the thing about it was we'd have the army out and all that stuff. But the thing about it is that, is there this type of espionage and that, like James Bond? No. They don't have the brains. They don't have the intelligence to do it. Now, one of the things within all police forces is there's things called touts, people who will volunteer information. Now, there's a big difference in telling a guard, I think that fella living up the road, he bought a new car, and you see him out at night an awful lot. That's only being a good citizen. But sometimes then there's informants that might be used. Now, it used to be that the ordinary guard or sergeant could manage his own one, and I would have had a few, mainly for ordinary crimes and that about what had been going on, and particularly drugs. We'd be really trying to find out what's going on and who's under pressure. Maybe some young lad being threatened with being tortured or something. You'd like to know about it. Wouldn't be that much in the country areas, but there was a bit of it. And so, and then there'd be people moving into the area. And so that was the thing. But the job abused me. A few times I did get very, very useful information, and they wanted the likes of me to hand that up to the chief, who had only wanted it for one reason, and that was to give it the case to somebody else who was my rival for appointment and promotion. And when I was making good progress, I would tell them nothing. And that's my advice to any guard. I'd tell them nothing. I'd keep going on my guard with me case. I wouldn't tell them all. I'd say, we have a lad worth looking at me. And I'd always throw out a false flag. So supposing that the lad I believe did it was John Henry McCutcheon, you see. So if my authorities were saying to me, what's the story there? Well, now there's a Willie Green, and I'm watching him, but I have no evidence really. And there's a McCutcheon there, and there's another. I wouldn't tell the whole lot. I'd cover myself by naming them, but then when I'd get their backs turned, I'd go out and lift them and solve the crime. And this got to be, they hated this. I think it was perfectly all right. Now there's a special unit of the guards to deal with information. And, well, on one hand, if you have guards managing all kinds of informants and that, is not maybe they're not fit for it. I was perfectly fit for it. I knew exactly what the law was, how to use these people, right, and how to keep the general body of my officers away from them, because they didn't need to know. Now there was a form then in the guards, a confidential form, and lads would be filling it up to get notice. And a lot of it was baloney. A lot of the stuff that was going in never happened, and sergeants would be telling us, they'd be hearing things, and people would be telling them things in pubs, and there'd be nothing about it. So it never worked well. There was never anything like that. But sometimes you get good information, and you'd have to try and use it. If you had a good district officer and a chief superintendent that was going to give you fair credit, all right, but that's rare, very, very far between. And in the country areas of the guards, they won't promote the locals. All of the Donegal, Roscommon, Longford, Cavan, no locals will get above the rank of superintendent. They might let one be a superintendent, but they won't. The Dublin people get the whole lot. Dublin gets the whole lot. They're up there where they're seen, and they're recommended for promotion, and they have no place to put them, and they horse them down the country. And they come down then and they want to know who your contacts are. And my advice to the any guard, tell them bloody nothing. Tell them nothing. Keep your contacts, because it's nice. You see, if you're a well-motivated guard, you'll want a wee bit of progress there. You'll want to have the interest in it. But anyway, that's my experience. Now, I could tell a lot more, but I won't. But the thing about it is, yes, there is a secret service. See, look at the way the US was able to buy off your man in Venezuela to catch Maduro. See, and they tried it in Iran, big time, and it worked for a long time. But it didn't work recently, because what Iran started doing was identifying these people and hanging them. Israel has no contacts much in Iran anymore. Started hanging them. That's the way they've seen it. And that soon dried up the source of information. So, but the bigger deep state is the World Economic Forum. And many political commentators make this point, including Alex Mascouras, a very interesting person. Always give him a like and subscribe to his channel. And many more, like Colonel Douglas MacGregor, ex-military people from the US, decent people, and Scott Ritter and many. And they make the point that the entire European Union and England is entirely World Economic Forum, global elite. And what happens is, and I was once a sergeant. I came to a station within about a year or so, and the lad that was there before me, the sergeant, he didn't bother his head enforcing licensing laws or anything else. And there was a lot of pubs and not that much business, and they'd be looking for free extensions. So there might be a party for some girl that turned 18, and they were trying to get these parties to bring in money, but they were supposed to fork out €180 to solicitors to get the extension in the court. Well, that was a lot, and they'd be coming to me then, would you not give me a look, would you let me have me bit of a party? And eventually I realised that the previous incumbent, the previous sergeant, hadn't been enforcing the law at all. He'd letting them do what they like. And that wasn't very fair to solicitors, because they were hoping to get that €180 for their appearance in court, just to apply for the extension. There'd be no objection. And in neighbouring towns it was enforced, but in this one it wasn't. And I started enforcing it, and of course I was the worst in the world then. That was strict. And all I was doing was enforcing the law. I wasn't jailing anyone or anything. So the pressure came on me to be up and down to the station. I want to have a wee word with you. And this was going on all the time. And so that's what happens. When you get elected to a procedure, you're part of the government. The ordinary man won't be coming to you very often unless he's in trouble. But the great and the good will be telling you what to do. And if you don't know how to think for yourself, you'll have the likes of Klaus Schwab's, the World Economic Forum, the Bilderberg Group, and all these great and the good. And so some of these are billionaires, very, very wealthy, made their money burning fossil fuel mainly, and out of electricity generation and all that, and they're very, very rich, and they have families. And they begin to fret that the world will melt with global warming, and so they feel they need to shut down the rest of us and give us no fuel. And they can get that across in Ireland to the Greens, who are the main leaders of that. It doesn't work too well for them. They did get 12 seats on one occasion. Fianna Fáil, I know several Fianna Fáil TDs for years, and they say, I don't know why this is going on. I don't agree with it, but they can't do anything about it. So these World Economic Forum people have it sorted out in such a way that they're in control of the governments in places like New Zealand, where that one was. Do you remember that woman was in there, silly woman? And when the COVID came in, they wanted it locked down. They wanted locked down in case they'd get some kind of a disease. And so in America, you Kamala Harris, they were mad for this. And in addition to that, the renewable energy and the electric cars, and they're trying to goad the politicians into that. And so what happens is, long ago people would vote Labour in Britain, they'd vote Conservatives, and Conservatives would represent the middle class, and Labour was the working class and the unions, and it was between them it was. And in Ireland, Fianna Fáil was kind of like the Labour Party in Britain, sort of a working man's thing, and Fine Gael was a bit stricter, but they were still trying to keep the thing going. I mean, if you got injured up to 1966 in Ireland and you sued your employer, he could sack you. He could sack you from your job. And Fine Gael endorsed that and were fully happy with it. Fianna Fáil got in and they made it illegal to do that, the Workmen's Compensation Act. So that'll give you an idea how Fianna Fáil was more for the worker and Fine Gael was more for the big farmer and the big business. And there wasn't much imagination in Fine Gael. There was a bit more in Fianna Fáil, and they used to say Fianna Fáil could bring out the money in from builders and all of that. But then their crookery got the better of them, and they were all crooks, most of them. Most of them were crooks and dodgy people on all sides. I don't need to name anybody, but all dodgy people. And voters began to pull away because there's a certain amount of religion in Ireland and a certain amount of Christian righteousness in that, and their vote went way down. So in Ireland, Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael together, any one of them could Fianna Fáil could get 55 or 6% of the vote and form a government. Fine Gael could only form a government with Labour. But now the two of them together couldn't form a government. In fact, Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael and Labour couldn't form a government now. And their vote is down again. So it's quite natural. What happens is, as they turn out for the global elite and do their bidding, a lot of their people spot them. And some of their diehards die. They pass away, and there's nobody new to come on, and so the vote whittles down. And you see that in Britain, where you had Labour, the working man's party, which turned communist and turned global elite, but then you had the Conservative Party, and it was meant to be the one that kept things on straight and narrow, and like Margaret Thatcher, and didn't fall for any of this climate change baloney or global warming or mass migration or anything. So they were keeping that. But whatever happened since the EU came in, and Britain was a member of the EU until 2016, the EU was we didn't know it, of course, fully global elite. They were fully and mostly run by women. On a watch, women, and so they were in charge. And while Britain was run by the EU, the EU managed to conquer the Conservative Party. It had already conquered Labour, but it had managed to conquer the Conservative Party. And then you got to a stage in the Conservative Party where nearly nobody knew how to run the country and no Labour person run the country. So when Keir Starmer comes on and says, oh, I'm in favour of the EU, that's because he's not fit to do it himself. He wants someone else to throw it over to and let them make the rules. He has no brains. He's a dumbbell. And so are all the women there, like Claire Rainier and Rachel Reeves and those, all women. But the men aren't much better at Miliband. And so all they know is let in all these unfortunate Africans and Pakistanis and crowd and Indians with money. Let them all in. They're going to give us money. The big businesses want these people in their stores so they don't have to pay them so much. You can see the Indians working in all the shops and all that. They want them like that, but that should be a measured immigration. But it's not done. It's just let them all in and see what happens. Just lorry them in the dark of night. And so that's the situation with Labour in England. But the Conservatives, the Tories, were the ones that were meant to fix it. And Liz Truss was one that would have tried to fix it, but she hadn't enough wit. But they put her out. There was enough clout in the EU to withdraw government funding to government bonds and gilts for Liz Truss till they got her out. And then they put in whoever's there, Kemi Breadnock, and there was several that Rishi Sunak and them fellas, all bought over and paid for by the World Economic Forum, and no brains, no ability how to start factories or industries, and destroyed the industrial base of Britain. And now we have the situation where the Labour Party is a shambles. It's an unbelievable shambles. The Conservative Party's Labour just might as well join up, and you have Nigel Farage trying to fight them back. He's still probably solid on immigration, I think, and he's probably against the global warming crack and the carbon tax. I think some says he's bent a bit back, leaning the way they were, but that's the way it sometimes goes. But he on immigration, he seems to be all right. On the economy and stopping all this green stuff, I think he's all right. And if he got those two things right, he wouldn't be going too bad. But we'll see. They're trying to organise him, what do you call him, Andy Burnham. Somebody's give up their seat in Birmingham, big thing to do. And he's going to run in Birmingham. I think he'll lose. That's a UKIP seat or a Reform UK. I don't think they're going to vote for Andy Burnham. And what are they going to do then? Labour will end up with only 10 seats in the House of Commons. That's the thing. England's different to here, particularly England. Scotland and Wales is a bit like Ireland. You know, there's something, not just, they don't seem to be thinking like me, but Britain is, so there's a mess there. So all told, there is a body of people. There used to be the Freemasons. They had a sort of an undercurrent, but they only have a lifespan. They only have a lifespan. In the United States, Trump did tackle it to some degree, but unfortunately, the billions and billions of dollars in the United States is all in the hands of the Jewish community. Anyone that's home from I had a man home from New York to have a funeral recently, told me they own all the property. They own all. And so they're buying the Congress. So I don't know how long that'll go. So what the voters are slowly doing is they're turning away. And that's happening. So there is a sort of global elite. There is. They're not as well organised as you would think. They can lift the phone and talk to any politician and you can't. People like me are trying to blow them out of the water. We are pointing out to people this and planting it in people's heads that they're wrong. And they're wrong on the renewable energy. And we work on that. So we are having a certain amount of an effect. And you could get to the stage. And you have a stage with Labour in Britain where they're a laughing stock. Labour Party is a laughing stock. That's what you have. You have Kamala Harris, a sort of a laughing stock, and Tim Walz in America. And if Trump doesn't mind himself and pull away from these Israelis a bit, he'll be a laughing stock. The Iranians are sending out makeup videos. You know, AI. He want to watch himself big time there. So does that explain it? Meanwhile, in Russia, it's a man-run society. There are women, but it's a male thing. And after all, it's the men that have to fight in the war. So they are a much more, what is the word, patriotical? They're much more conservative. I don't know if they're fully democratic, but the Putin has a good lot of backing there. China's a communist party. It's a communist system, but it's capitalist. But the difference is the government controls the capitalism. You have a lot of millionaires in China. And now we see China, Putin went to China and met Chairman Xi, and he got a great reception. I think he's still there, and you see that the balance is moving. When Trump went over, they more or less told him, we're going to have Taiwan back, and they didn't give him the minerals. I don't know what he really got. He got selling a few jets. Sorry, he got selling a few jet planes and a bit of soya beans and that sort of stuff. So with all this woke stuff, we are slow. Sorry about the phone. It's just somebody that has to come, and I have to go now. With all of this, I think I've tried to set out to you how the secret societies, the deep state, the MI5s, the MI6s, how they work. I kind of had a bit of experience of them myself. I wasn't very impressed. I was looking for a real good spy, a real good double agent. I couldn't see any of them with enough intelligence. You have to keep your mouth shut. That's some job for a lot of the Irish, a lot of the English too. A big job keeping the mouth shut with a few pints. I'm one of the few people who could keep secrets, and I didn't want to know people's secrets, but still I know what was going on. So broadly speaking, in the context of the Gardaí, when I was in it, they were a dour crowd. All the chief superintendents were dour, as I say, going down to a Northern Police Christmas dinner and trying to get boxes of biscuits out of them. Oh yeah, and I want to just finish on that. The chief officer of the police stood up and he gave a bit of a speech about the importance of security, and we try to great movements on the political scene, and nationalists are getting a say, and he gave a big diplomatic speech. And the chief from the guard stood up and says, ladies and gentlemen, Chief Superintendent, Lieutenant, that and the other secretary and all that, on behalf of my wife, I want to compliment you on this meal. There was lovely soup. I enjoyed that soup, and so did my wife. And I don't really mention the biscuits, and lovely lunch, lovely turkey and ham. It was great. And we got lovely rice pudding and ice cream. It was absolutely great. And we got coffee, beautiful. I enjoyed it no end. He never made any comment about the police arrangements at all. That's all that got out of him. So where would you be going with Spies? I wouldn't build in too much to them. I'd love to meet one. But anyway, that's the story. Oh, there was, like when Collins was doing the Independence War, he told his men, there are spies. Oh, we don't know any spies. They're here, he says, I know it statistically. And you see, that'd be my way of thinking too. Statistically, there are informants. And he had them warned. He knew about 4 of them. And he had them warned. And one fella kept talking to the British. And he had him shot. And he gave his widow a slight pension out of the new state. See? So that was the way. He knew they were there. I don't know, with the Gardaí and information, or who would you go to? It used to be the local guard. You could tell them the information, but you'd like to know that it was being worked on, and that sometimes. Then I knew of a case one time where a man come in to the station to a guard, and the guard was all hyped up. He says, that neighbour of mine has drugs up there, and I knew well there was a bad dispute going between him and the neighbour, and I refused to search it. I done a few inquiries and I realised that he had no drugs, that was out. So the lad that took the complaint reported me for not doing my duty. He wanted me to go before a judge and swear in information and get a warrant to search for the drugs in the house. And wrote terrible stuff about me, and the thing came down to me, why didn't you act on this? I says, I know this is an old dispute. There's no drugs going on at all. I think actually he was making a bit of putsching maybe at that, but it's not going on, and I have to swear an information on my oath. So the superintendent called me up, and I think the chief, that Val Martin's covering up drugs. He doesn't seem to have the right approach. And I had a portfolio on drugs, and I again said to them, there's no evidence. This is a vexatious complaint. There is no need to do it. You can search it and be sure. I said I can't swear the information before a judge. I have to say, Judge, I swear by Almighty God that this is true evidence. I have reason to believe from confidential information that John Henry is dealing in drugs and has drugs at his house. Well, I couldn't say that because the person who reported it was only doing it for spite, and I knew it right well. So they didn't like me for that, but they didn't go up and search it themselves. You're supposed to swear on your oath. So if he was a genuine thing, I probably would, but he wasn't. So anyway, that's the story. I must do a few videos on how to be a good guard, but anyway, that'll do for now. Yeah, they're there. I wouldn't worry about them. There's nothing I'd love more than have a British spy living up the road, which I don't have. I can tell you, wouldn't it be lovely if one of them moved in and I'd fill him full of shit? I'd give him stuff to write about. I can imagine what he'd be getting from me. There'd be bombs and bullets and Sputniks and everything. I'd fill him full of stuff. Wouldn't I just do that? Okay, I hope you enjoyed that video, folks. There's no brains anymore. There's no brains in America, Canada, the EU, England, or anything else. No brains. Brainless gobshites. Good luck. Comment underneath. And sorry about the phone. I have to ring back this phone now. Thank you.